Welcome to the Office of Early Childhood's webinar, How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Count the Ways. Why it is important to routinely practice parental self-care, which ultimately benefits the children we love. Passing it to Diana, who will give us interpretation instructions.
Thank you, Lorna. Hello, everyone. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Diana Reyes y daré instrucciones como cómo acceder a los servicios de traducción para el seminario web. En la parte inferior de la pantalla, haga clic en el globo que dice traducción y luego seleccione español o SP. A continuación, puede silenciar el idioma original. También voy a poner las instrucciones en el chat. Gracias por acompañarnos.
Hello and good afternoon. It's wonderful to welcome you here today to today's webinar. My name is Elena Trueworthy and I am the Acting Commissioner at the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. So today's webinar is entitled, How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Count the Ways. Why it is important to routinely practice parental self-care, which ultimately benefits the children we love. So the last part of that title really caught me around ultimately benefits the children we love. So I know as parents, we love our children, but I also know that all of us who work in the early childhood field also loves and cares for deeply the children and families that we serve, right? And within our classrooms, during our home visits, during our case management, services that we provide, and in our communities. And so this is a really great webinar to remind us, right, how important self-care is. And I can say as a mom of 3 children, I need these reminders and these new strategies and this support from all of you to ensure that I'm taking care of myself as a mother, right? And also knowing that emotions, right, play a big part in that as well. And here at the OEC, we're going through a little bit of a tough week. And so having this as an opportunity to learn and to share and to be with all of you feels really, really good. So thank you for being here. I am now going to introduce our keynote speaker today, and we're so fortunate to have her. Her name is Joelle Murchison. She is the founder and CEO of EMG, Exec Mummy Group. Love that title, love that name. A diversity, equity, and inclusion in leadership consulting practice. She has worked in DEI for more than 2 decades. Before launching EMG, she served as the Chief Diversity Officer at both Travelers Insurance and the University of Connecticut. She currently serves as the Executive Director of Lawyers Collaborative for Diversity and is an adjunct faculty member at UConn. In addition, Joelle volunteers and is so active within her community as well. She currently serves on the Board of Education in her town, as well as a board member for College Possible, a national nonprofit focused on college access, amongst many other things. In addition to, she is the proud parent of 4 amazing children. So Joelle, thank you so much for being here with us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elena, for that great introduction. I had to click several things to make sure that I was on and being heard, and then ultimately we'll share just a few slides with you all. Thank you so much, particularly to Lorna Thomas Farquharson for the invitation to be with you all today. I'm really grateful in particular to talk about this topic because I think it is so relevant for so many of us as we navigate this new normal that we are experiencing where, quite frankly, we are being faced almost every day, and certainly as we think about the notion of the 24-hour news cycle, with challenges. And we have had to figure out, certainly as human beings, as citizens of the United States, but certainly as parents, how we react and respond to these issues that we are faced with. And sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we don't. And so it's really important for us to take a moment to think about what it would require for us to, as I like to say, to fill our cups. There is the notion that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so it's important that we not only fill our cups, but fill them to overflow so that we have an opportunity to give to others. And those others who unapologetically expect us to pour for them and to pour a full cup for them are often our children. I also want to acknowledge that there are folks likely who are viewing this webinar who also have elder care responsibilities as well. And while the adage says that you're once an adult, twice a child, and some of us perhaps who are caregivers might see that very much to be the case, acknowledging that there also are other folks in your home that you are modeling the way for, as well as we navigate this sort of new normal. So let me start by just pulling up some slides. I just want to share a few things with you to sort of build a foundation for our time together today. And I do hope that at minimum, what you'll walk away with are some new ideas on not only how to think about self-care, but to allow it to fill your own cup, and to think about what it is for you. Okay. So today, as I mentioned, I'd like to spend some time talking about the notion of filling your cup, empowering healthy parents for healthy children. It's interesting because as I'm thinking about this right now, literally as I'm coming to you today, I'm preparing to take a trip early tomorrow morning without my children for several days with some friends. And the trip comes at an incredible time. We've been planning for it for a couple of years now. And none of us could have known what was going to be happening in the world around us as we were preparing for this trip. And so I've spent the last couple of days not only trying to pack so that I am not up all night packing, which is typically what I do, but also so that I can tie up any loose ends and ensure that my children, as well as in my case, my mother, are available and have everything that they need within reason while I'm away. And so it is really important, and I view this trip as a way of filling my cup, looking forward to it as a space to spend time with me, obviously, as well as with friends. But what happens with many of us who are parents and we travel, we constantly are preparing, packing for others and anticipating others' needs. Well, in this particular moment, what I found some enjoyment in is thinking about the things that I will need for this trip. And I found a lot of joy yesterday rambling around, pulling all of the toiletries and things that I have that I haven't used in a very long time, like an eye mask and all these other things, and throwing them in the bag because I will finally have some time for me. And so it is indeed my opportunity to fill my cup. So let's talk about self-care. Everyone says it, it's used quite a bit, but what is self-care? I found this definition online, and it's either an AI one or a combination of ones from other sites, which is why I don't have a particular um, source. It says the practice of taking intentional actions to improve one's physical, mental, and emotional well being. Now, you probably know I'm going to go back to one of those words, and that is intentional, right? So, a lot of people talk about self care. And they talk about it in this sort of nebulous way that doesn't always show up as intentional. What I like about this definition and this image is that this individual is literally paying attention to them, giving themselves a big hug. And I would imagine taking stock perhaps of what they might need physically, mentally, and emotionally to be able to carry forward. Now, many times we talk about self-care and people assume that it's some boondoggle. Oh, you're going to the spa, you're going to get your nails done or a facial or something of that nature. And while I do think for some of us, because it's about intentional, it's about physical, emotional, and psychological. So for some of us, this might be self-care. It might be. You might say, I'm going to get a massage. That's self-care, because you're going perhaps by yourself and you're allowing yourself to experience some time period that will be refilling for you. I would like to challenge that notion just a little bit as we think about what self care is. And hopefully, each of you can take a moment as we reflect to redefine what self care means for you. So, if I just flip back for one moment to the prior slide, I just want you to remember these words: physical, mental, and emotional. Physical, mental, and emotional. Now, I would venture to guess that while, yes, you could argue that your facial or getting your hair done or getting your nails done speak to your physical well being. But as we all know, our physical well being is much more than the outside. It absolutely has everything to do with the inside as well. So I don't discount that for many of us, getting our nails done or our hair done can make us feel good. But is that really intentional self care where we take time and stock to give ourselves a big hug and figure out what we need? Well, I would argue that sometimes that's not really fully what self care is. So let's examine the slide on the screen. Self care can be all of these things. It can be asking for help, taking a step back, forgiving yourself. This one is my favorite as I turned 50 last year. Saying no. Everyone said to me that when I got to 50, I would unapologetically feel very comfortable saying no. And guess what? I did. Self care, staying at home, setting boundaries, asking for what you need, putting yourself first, spending time alone. Now, growing up as an only child, I absolutely have always cherished alone time. Now, as the mom of four, I have very little alone time. In fact, what I find myself doing is staying up really late because it's only in the stillness and quiet of the evening, or really, I should say night, often after midnight. That's when I find some quiet alone time. I can be with my thoughts, maybe even talk to myself a little bit, watch a favorite show, or simply decompress. That, however, I've learned is not always the best way to capture that need that I have, because as I've gotten older, my need for sleep has become critically important. So sometimes I have to challenge myself to recognize that if I'm sleepy, an act of self care is actually also going to sleep. What I've become more comfortable doing even is taking a nap. God forbid, setting my phone for 20 minutes when I'm really, really exhausted and just taking a nap. So self care for me is much bigger than getting my nails done or my hair done. Quite frankly, those are maintenance activities, right? Those are things that I am required because of my own expectations to do on a regular basis. Sure, I can not do them, right? Sometimes we don't take our cars in as often as we should, even when we see the sticker that tells us that perhaps it's time for an oil change. Or some of us even live on the edge where when the light comes on in our car, we still keep driving. I don't need the oil change right now. I'll just wait. Well, so that's when I think about the care for us in terms of hair or nails or things of that nature. Sometimes we push that off, but I'm not certain that that's really the self care that we are seeking, particularly as parents. So, as I talked about saying no, take a moment now and think about of some of the items that are shared here or other things that really show up as self care for you. And this is just an example. So, this may not be exhaustive, or certainly is not exhaustive, but just think about for you, what does that look like? I'll share another one for me. One of the things that has been really, really freeing for me is the notion of taking a step back or being more intentional about things that I want to do and the things that I don't. As many of you might be, as a very, very focused and driven, some might say type A woman, I have always sought to fill my calendar. If there's nothing in the space, sure, I can attend the meeting. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize that sometimes that blank space is a gift. And so now I'm much more intentional with what I want to spend my time doing. And some things that the time is available, but I just don't want to go. I just don't necessarily want to attend that event. Then on the flip side, there are things that I want to attend, and I will move heaven and earth in order to make sure that I can get there. So I think self care is really an affirmation of who you are, an affirmation in that moment of how you're feeling and what your body, your heart, and your mind are telling you. So, just to give you an idea of how I fill my cup, one of the things that I love to do is I love to cook. Now, I don't always have time to cook all the time. So if any of you happen to have seen me picking up a meal from Bears on a Sunday afternoon, the family meal deal is a really good option. There are times when I know, and that is self-care for me, that if I don't have the time or space to do it, I'm going to find examples or options for my family to enjoy that allow me to breathe, right? So sometimes my love of cooking might extend to the fact that I know that this moment doesn't present me the time I need. So I need a little bit of a lifeline. And so I might go into my app and pick something out and pick it up. What I also have only recently started to do is to watch a little TV. I tend not to watch TV very often. We do not have a lot of TVs in our home. There's one in the kitchen and one in the family room, which means that the kids typically have taken over one of those televisions. And so I don't get a chance to watch the things that I like. But my daughter introduced me to a show, 911, and I understand there are a lot of iterations of it that I feel like I can pick up at any point in time. I had never watched it, so there were 7 seasons. The new season starts in a couple of weeks, so I'm trying to get prepared. But I have a feeling that I'm better off watching it at my own pace. And so I enjoy having that, even sometimes in the background, where I can check in or check out as I wish. One of the things that I really enjoy is Life or Fitness Studio in West Hartford. It is a Black woman owned, I would say, boutique fitness studio that offers a variety of courses Monday through actually Sunday through Saturday at different times. I actually put my visits to Lifer, the classes that I choose to take, on my calendar as a recurring event. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9:30 to 10:30. And then I have placed a cushion of a half hour on either side to give me time to not only travel there, but when I return home to be able to shower before I get into the meetings of the day. And that I have come to find has been incredible, not only physical health and care, but also emotional and psychological care. When I'm stressed or feeling a little anxious, having the opportunity to work out really, really does something for my spirit. And so that has been another way to fill my cup. And the final piece is I mean, really love my heated mattress pad. It is absolutely the thing that makes me happy to turn it on so that my bed is nice and toasty when I get in and I have no problems falling asleep. So I know that there are things that fill my cup. You should ask yourself, what are the things that fill your cup? What and how are self care defined for you? Now, I ask this question because I think sometimes, again, as folks define self care, they define it perhaps very narrowly in ways that you may not necessarily even align to. So the question is, who should determine what self care is for you? Not any magazine, not any book, but literally you. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be, it might be a partner or a spouse who says, you're going to get your nails done or you're going to get your hair done. That's self care, isn't it? Maybe not. Maybe my self care is when I get up in the morning, I just want to go outside for a walk by myself. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean that I don't care for you. but it means that I absolutely need to spend some time for me. I just took a quick look at the chat and I love one of the comments that was made that self care is sometimes not taking phone calls, not solving other people's problems. Absolutely, right? Crying. And I'm for a good cry all the time. Like sometimes we just need to let it out. But that whole notion of, particularly in this society, well, we've become so accustomed to responding immediately to an email as soon as it comes in, or a text message as soon as it comes in, or answering every phone call, even if you don't feel like it. We don't have to do that. We can call back when we're ready to call back or not. We can answer that text when we're ready to answer that text. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the tools that we can use to help us, right? Because I suspect that some of us who are of a certain age, and I think I shared that I turned 50 last year. I very clearly admit that there are some times that I just don't remember, right? I was going to text you back. In my head, I was going to text you back, and perhaps I just forgot to press send. So there are lots of tools out there that can help us to do that. So don't worry about that piece. But you are the person, you are the arbiter, the decision maker around what self care looks like for you. And you can even change your mind from one day or one week to the next. So I wanted to share these people with you because these are my 4 children. They are my why. And as I said, also my bosses. Now, I am the one we just talked about that we are the ones who should determine our self care. But I do think that they help me to make those decisions by virtue of who they are as 4 very different individual children. My oldest is 21, getting ready to graduate from college. She's on the left-hand side of the screen. My next one down is 17. She's getting ready to graduate from high school. So big transitions happening. And as a parent, really recognizing these folks are actually growing into adults and young adults. And how does that change the interactions that I have with them? My son Caleb, who is just next to me to my left, is 15. Excuse me, I'm rushing him. He turned 16 in April. He's 15. He's a sophomore in high school, and he is on the autism spectrum. And then my youngest, Raven, is 9, and she thinks she's the boss of everyone. Why did I tell you about all of them and how different they are? Well, they are absolutely what helped me to shape what self care looks like for me because they are all so different. They need different things from me at different times, which means that my self care might look different from time to time, depending upon what kind of interaction or where they need. Now, I realized once I did this that I did forget to actually input the picture. This is terrible of my mother. Where did I learn it from? And so I'm going to go back to the kids so that you don't have to look at a blank screen. But I wanted to just say and emphasize the role that we as parents play in teaching our children the importance of self care. My mother, so I'm an only child, and my mother very regularly would go to her room and either have, and now this is something I actually don't do, I don't eat in my room, and that's my thing or what have you, but she would take to her room either a bowl of butter pecan ice cream or a glass of red wine, Taylor 20 port in particular. I will never forget the vision of her. I knew when she dipped out her ice cream or when she poured her wine, she was going up to bed. That was my first view into what self care looked like. I knew as a child that that was her time. She had worked all day. She had ensured that I had everything I needed in terms of help with homework or dinner. But when she started to prepare that bowl or pour that glass, I knew that was her time. And so, similarly, it is our accountability to help our children understand how important self care is for us, but also ultimately for them. I have made it totally fine for my children. And a lot of people say, I don't like closed doors in my house. But sometimes I think it is appropriate for your child to be able to go into a space and be alone. Sometimes we don't need someone peeking in or looking in, and obviously within safety reasons, what would be necessary. But I have made it okay for them to go and sit I've also suggested sometimes that when things are hard and maybe you don't want to talk because we don't always want to talk, that they can use a journal or writing as a mechanism of getting some of those expressed feelings out. And so hopefully they are also watching the way that I have leaned into and made an intentional priority around those things that have really begun to fill my cup from a self-care perspective. Now, I know that you all who are parents already know this, but parenting does not come with a playbook. I wish it did. But every single day, with each child individually, you will experience a variety of different things. And so I think in some ways, it's helpful to have some family guidelines, particularly as it makes sense to allow you, right, the emotional wellness that comes with self care. And so we actually have this sign in our bathroom. It's very standard, so I'm sure others do as well. In this house, we do hugs, we do second chances, we do mistakes, we do honesty, we do forgiveness, we do laughter, we do real, we do fun, we do love, and we do family. And that is however you define it, whoever the individuals are that make up family, that is who it is for you. But what's important is that we are going to disappoint each other. We are going to be upset with each other. Sometimes we may be short of patience. Perhaps we are tired. We have to be able to articulate sometimes to our family when we do fall short of some of these family guidelines. I have routinely said to my kids in different moments, I need a minute. I am tired. And I don't want to say or do anything to you that comes out of my exhaustion. I just need a minute. And I think that that hopefully is something that they can take on as well, whether you articulate that you need a minute, or perhaps whether you're in the workplace setting or at home and you just need to take a moment to step away. I've learned some of that from my son, who struggles at times with his behavior triggered by other people's behavior. Now, that sounds like all of us. But one thing that we know is that, in particular for him, when he hears, and this is very challenging in the high school setting, when he hears people talking or cursing, he will react negatively. And so he has a number of tools that he can use that will help him to be able to come back to center. And so, as we're raising individuals, it's important that we recognize that all of our children are different and they will require different explanations, different understanding for perhaps when we need to take our self care. So, as I said, some children need clarity to understand your need for self care and their own, right? As I shared a moment ago, I'm tired. I need a moment because I don't want anything that I say or do to be a reaction based upon my tiredness or my frustration because it has nothing to do with you, right? I try to teach my kids that all the time because that's unfortunately what happens in our society is that people lash out because of other things, not because of the individuals in front of them. And that's how we cause a lot of hurt. Creating boundaries. I'll be with you in 10 minutes, right? And holding yourself to it. Sometimes I literally set a timer. You have 10 minutes. I will be with you in 10 minutes. When the timer goes off on the oven, I can help you with that. I can't pick you up at 3, but if you wait until 3:15, I'll be there. My high school senior has something every single day, it seems. And I'm fortunate as a consultant who works for myself that I can typically be there. But sometimes I have other things going on. And she needs to understand that the things that I do are important as well. So making those kinds of boundaries and setting them. Finally, modeling the way. I have a meeting to attend, and it's important that I'm on time. So I need your help in order to do that. I'll say to my youngest one, I really need you to start getting ready in 30 minutes because that way it will allow us to leave the house on time, right? So that I'm not running around like a nutcase because they're not ready, but because I haven't articulated to them what I really need from them. And so I think that's really important to be able to articulate that. So some of the tools, I alluded to that earlier. I am an app junkie. I am team Android. So I know some of you iPhone users think that you have the holy grail. But I literally love an app. An app allows me to make things a bit easier, whether it is ordering dinner or perhaps scheduling my workout class or a myriad of other things, online banking, etc. Apps apps have made my life a lot easier and certainly allow me to experience more time in self-care to fill my cup. I'm a little calendar crazed. I have several of them, but color coding actually allows me to be able to recapture some of my time because I do know what's coming. Journaling. I am not a consistent journaler, so I do not want to stand here and tell you that that is what I do on a regular basis. I'm actually horrible at it. When I do use it, it's when there are times when I may not have words, but I do have something to say, if that makes sense. So it allows me to sometimes get words off of my brain that I need to get somewhere, but don't necessarily need to be directed at a person. I wish more people on social media would learn that practice, because it doesn't mean we need to hear you in a video every time you have something to say. Sometimes it might be better suited if, in fact, you write it in a journal so that you can collect your thoughts. Intentional scheduling. Some could call me crazy, but when my girls were younger, they did activities that aligned the time. And I didn't necessarily say you can't do X activity, but was very intentional about putting activities in front of them that would make sense. So if both of you can do it at the same time, or if you can do two things and they're in close proximity, that's really important. We cannot run ourselves ragged. And then I am a hypertasker. And they say that's not a good thing. We really should only focus on one thing. Hypertasking is taking multitasking to an absolute next level. But I do find that in some instances, it is what allows me to be, particularly as a mother of 4, to be as productive as I can, and maybe even get some sleep. So all in all, the reality is, and I think this is preaching to the choir because most of you know this already, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so it is absolutely mission critical for you to find ways to not only define what self-care means, but to use those particular tools or skills or activities or interests that you might have to fill your cup. You need your cup to be filled, really even overflowing, before you have the ability or the capacity to give to others. And so that is what I would leave with you. Think about self-care in the context of how you fill your cup. It doesn't have to be going to get your nails done or getting your hair done. Sometimes it may just mean taking a step back, waking up a little earlier, taking a walk midday, perhaps even taking that 20-minute power nap. Whatever self-care is for you, whatever you need to fill your cup is what is important, what is intentional, and what you should carry forward. So I do hope that at minimum, there is a message that is left with you today. If there's anything that I can ever do moving forward, whether it is about helping you to fill your cup, here are some ways to contact me. And again, I thank you so much for this opportunity today to share with such a wonderful, wonderful group of individuals to help us all be our best selves and succeed. So thank you.
My, oh my, Joelle, the thanks and the appreciation goes to you. Your message, and you can see the hearts and the applauses that are flying up, just clearly validates the wonderful words you shared with us and reminded us of the importance of self-care. And thank you very much for distinguishing between self-care and maintenance. Very clear distinctions, and so respect and admire you for practicing what is preached. Thank you so very much, Joelle. Thank you very much.
Thank
My,
you.
oh my. Oh, yes, absolutely. So with that, as you all continue to absorb the wonderful keynote message that Joelle shared with us, we now are going to watch a brief video that also talks about the importance of self-care and how to practice it. Brief video at this time.
Do you ever wonder, what is self-care? According to the National Institute of Mental Health, self-care means taking the time to do things that help you live well and improve both your physical health and mental health. Prioritizing our own well-being can be tricky, especially for parents, caregivers, and people who work with youth. But caring for ourselves is essential to caring for others. Check out these 4 evidence-based tips for practicing self-care in your life. First, take care of your body. Moving your body, staying hydrated, eating a nourishing meal, and maintaining a healthy sleep routine are all acts of self-care. Self-care doesn't need to be luxurious, and you don't have to do everything all at once. It's okay to take small steps each day. Second, give yourself some space. It's important to feel like you have your own space, even for part of the day. Choose a spot where you feel calm, focused, and safe. If you share a space, talk with your family about respecting specific times for each person to use areas for self-care. Third, schedule a worry window. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each day to focus on thoughts that give you stress, anxiety, or worry. Try saying them out loud or writing them down. When you have a specific time to process difficult thoughts, you can be more present with yourself and your family during the rest of the day. And fourth, connect with other people. Community care is an important part of self-care. It reminds us that we have support and we are not alone. Ways to connect may include texting or calling a loved one, having a weekly family meal or game night, and talking with a licensed therapist or counselor, and getting involved in a local faith community or cause. Your health is important because you deserve to live well. And when you're well, you're able to show up at your best for the people you care about. What are your favorite self-care tips? Learn more in the video description and at coleshealthyathome.org.
Wonderful. Well, my oh my, I think we heard many points shared there that we also heard from our wonderful keynote speaker. Again, lots of important pieces for us to remember and to practice. And with that, as we talk about the importance of self-care and parenting and uplifting the parent-family voice, I am so honored now to introduce to you parent Karen Pascal, who is the Connecticut Head Start Collaboration Office Director, the Office of Early Childhood, who will also be followed by Christina Morales, who is a statewide 2-Gen coordinator. And the two of them are going to share with you about how at the Office of Early Childhood, we strive to uplift the parent and family voice through family engagement efforts. Karen, passing it to you.
So much, Lorna. Really happy to be with you all today and to talk about our family engagement efforts at the OEC. So at the Office of Early Childhood, we recognize the important role that parents and caregivers have in the lives of their children as both their child's first teacher and their biggest advocate. This engagement plays a crucial role in the development and success of early education, forming valuable partnerships between educators and families. And so at the OEC, we are working together to align our family engagement efforts to elevate family voice and to better connect our parent leaders across the state. Here are just a few of our current initiatives, and this will also serve as a brief introduction for some of our amazing panelists to come. So I'll start with Head Start. So the Connecticut Head Start Collaboration Office facilitates partnerships between Head Start agencies and other local and state agencies that provide services to benefit children and their families. For nearly 60 years, our Head Start programs have been delivering services to children and their families in the core areas of early learning, health, and family well-being, all while engaging parents as partners every step of the way. Head Start actually served as a model for our next initiative, which is the Parent Cabinet. The Connecticut OEC Parent Cabinet is a diverse, parent-led, 15-member statutory statewide advisory committee to the OEC. The Cabinet meets monthly to help advise the agency on how to make improvements in the lives of children and their families across the state. And when we use the term parent, we mean all who care for and help raise children in a parenting role. Our parent cabinet members offer guidance not only to the OEC, but other state agencies on how to improve programs, policies, and laws related to young children and their families. They elevate the needs of families from all backgrounds, from across Connecticut, from parents and others, so that those voices are heard at the highest levels of state government. They also help us form lasting and effective partnerships with families. They increase their own knowledge of early childhood supports and help further develop their leadership skills. And lastly, they increase awareness around OEC services and supports, which I think is a really great segue to our next initiative, Parents Connecting Parents. And my colleague Christina will take it from here.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. Yes, Parents Connecting Parents is a new pilot program designed to connect families, parent to parent, in 6 communities across our state. We want families to know they have access to state and local programs that can benefit their family. Really, the importance of connecting families to early childhood programs and spaces. The Office of Early Childhood is working with local early childhood collaboratives to connect with families who are currently underutilizing opportunities and supports available to them. Each of these collaboratives recruits parent ambassadors who are at the heart of this project. Our parent ambassadors are parents themselves who meet families where they are, in parks, laundromats, bodegas, and other community hubs. They're forming relationships with families and learning about their experiences. And they're also educating families about the Office of Early Childhood's programs and resources. And there are many of them. While the pilot program is only in 6 communities right now, and those communities are Bridgeport, Hartford, New Britain, New Haven, New London, and Waterbury, we hope to expand it into other regions in the future. And last but not least, my pocket of work, the Two-Generational Initiative. Connecticut's Two-Generational Initiative, also called 2Gen, is a holistic approach to supporting families that aims to disrupt cycles of poverty and advance family economic self-sufficiency. 2Gen's innovative whole family approach creates opportunities and addresses the needs of 2 generations at once. Those 2 generations are children and parents. So in our work, it helps to create and provide opportunities to children and parents to get the education, training, and social supports they need to succeed. And it allows parents the ability to pass on economic security to their children. Connecticut also has a statewide 2Gen advisory board. It convenes members of the executive, which is our state agencies, the legislative, which are our representatives and senators, and the judicial branches, so your court systems, etc., as well as private sector partners, which could include organizations, community-based nonprofits. But most importantly, it uplifts the voices of our parents. Without our parents, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the work that we're doing. It's their lived experience that helps to inform the work of 2Gen and of the other programs that you just heard a few moments ago. In 2015, Connecticut became the first state in the nation to pass legislation in which 2Gen became in statute. That's a wonderful success. So we were the first to have that in statute. And many communities across the state have adopted the 2Gen approach. You'll probably see them in schools with a community school model. You'll see it in a lot of the Parent Leadership Training Institute. There's a child model as well that is aligned with the parent leadership piece. There are many, many programs across the state around 2Gen. And I'm so excited to be able to be a part of the Office of Early Childhood and our family engagement model, bringing all of this work together and making sure that our families and parents are at the front of that work. Lorna?
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for highlighting the family engagement efforts. Certainly a lot that is happening and a job well done. And that is a great segue to have the honor of introducing our facilitator of our panel discussion, Melvette Hill. Melvette is the Executive Director of the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. When you talk about a change agent, when you talk about someone who advocates, who supports and practices what is preached in terms of uplifting the parent and family voice, she is the one. And we are so honored to have her to facilitate our panel discussion, and she will introduce the panelists. But right now, passing it over to you, Melvette. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Lorna and the Office of Early Childhood for allowing us to be here to really embark on this conversation around self-care as we discover what that looks like for all of us. I'm excited to introduce our panel today, and they will pop on camera as I call their names. So we have Mallory Page, who is with our Head Start Policy Council and the Office of Early Childhood Parent Cabinet. We also have Alexis Dwyer, who is on our Two-Gen Advisory Board that Christina mentioned, as well as Denise Cruz, who's another member of our Two-Gen Advisory Board. And finally, we have Stephanie Allery, who's with Parents Connecting Parents. Welcome to our panel. Hello. And so we're going to get started. I think we need Denise to come on camera when she is ready to join us. So I just want to take a moment for us to get to know you. We're not going to read your long bios, which I'm sure are splendid. And I love that Alexis is wearing her crown. I want for you to give our participants, our audience here, a little bit about yourself. So if you can share again with us your name as you begin to speak, and also share the ages of your children and how many children you have, as well as briefly tell us a little bit about what you enjoy most about parenthood. So, what do you enjoy most about parenthood? Tell us how many children you have and share the ages of your children. Let's start with Mallory.
Hello. So my name is Mallory, and I am with the Office of Early Childhood Parent Cabinet for Region 5. I also am on the Head Start Policy Council, and I have 6 daughters. I have 6 daughters, ages 18, 17, 10, 8, 5, and 5. The last 2 are 11 months apart. And what I love most about being a parent is watching my children grow, watching them grow and knowing that I had a hand in every aspect of their life and their growth. And that's the most rewarding part.
Thank you, Mallory. And let's go to Stephanie next. Stephanie.
Hello there. Thanks for having me. My name is Stephanie Allery. I'm a parent ambassador with Kite in Enfield, and I did the Parent Leadership Academy with Melissa Griffith, and that was kind of the start of my health wellness journey. I have 2 kids. I've got a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And yes, like the best thing is seeing them grow, learn, and knowing that are kind of molding them into this little you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And I hope that the little yous that you're molding them into are the fabulous leader that you are. So we're looking forward to those leaders that you are over there molding. And let's hear from Alexis. Alexis, good to
Hi,
see you.
everyone. I'm Alexis Dwyer. I'm a parent leader with the Two-Gen Parent Academy, as well as a life and empowerment coach who's passionate about helping single moms thrive and not just survive, and prioritizing health care and re-identifying their identity outside of motherhood and creating a harmonized balance for their personal well-being and their family success. I have 2 young boys. One is 8, and the other one will be turning 12 on Friday. They are truly the heart of everything that I do. And what I enjoy about parenting them is that seeing them grow up to be confident and thoughtful individuals and picking up positive habits like asking me for water because they recognize that I'm prioritizing hydration, or reminding me that they need their vitamins because they see the importance of their health. And seeing them thrive as I thrive is truly the most rewarding part of all of it.
Well, thank you, Alexis. And just offering if Denise can join us, if Denise would like to introduce herself.
My name is Denise. I'm from Hartford, and I'm also a parent leader at the Two-Gen. I have 2 children, both with special needs. I have a 9-year-old and I have a 25-year-old. And what I enjoy about my parenthood is I love being a mother. I definitely love to play the mentor role for them and seeing how they transition from young to oldest, and then helping them get through everything that they want to achieve, and setting their goals in place so that way when they get older they can be able to be successful in all of their accomplishments. But I love to see them grow, and I love helping them through transition.
Thanks so much, Denise. Well, everyone, here's our panel. Thank you for your introductions. So let's get into some questions. Now, it goes without saying, especially as we heard from you on what you enjoy most about being parents and about parenthood, we know that you love your children and you have lots of responsibilities. I'm also a parent. I have 4 adult children. And so, just so you know, whether you have toddlers or you have adult children, you're always going to be a parent and parenting in a parenting mode. And we wear many hats, and we have lots of responsibilities in addition to our parenting. But when you think about self care, how do you define self-care for yourself? And what does self-care look like for you? Let's go to Alexis.
So for me, self-care is nurturing every part of who I am. So that's mind, body, and spirit. That is getting enough rest, hydrating with lots of water, eating nutritional foods, exercising not just to look good, but to feel good, to be around for a long time, to have clear thoughts. That's going to therapy. That's also simplifying daily tasks. So one of the game changers for me is grocery delivery and laundry pickup and delivery. A lot of times those things become mundane. You may not have the strength to be in the grocery store all the time. I used to spend 2 hours in the aisles before getting to the cash register and then dealing with the children in the supermarket, telling them not to fight or not to touch things. Also, having to pack those things out and carrying these heavy bags. By the time I'd enter into the house, I'm dripping in sweat. There's no strength to cook. There's no strength to deal with anything after that. So grocery delivery has really changed the game for me. It gives me more time to work on projects, time to spend with my children, even time to just get that much needed rest. Also, self-care for me is the spiritual aspect of things. So taking that time to pray, taking that time to read the word, to play worship music or listen to sermons, or that's just that time to just meditate and write down my thoughts. When I feel like things are becoming chaotic for me, it realigns me to my source. So that's how I practice self-care on a day-to-day basis, and I'm intentional about it.
Thank you. Mallory, what does it look like for you? How do you define self-care and what does it look like?
I have to agree with Alexis. Being a mother with 6 daughters, as well as basically somewhat of the matriarch of my family, I wear a lot of hats. It's essential. It is intentional, and it is the whole aspect, the mind, the body, and the spirit. I do everything in life now with intent, and it was not always like that. I will not say that I even gave myself time, but it was about 5 to 6 years ago when I stopped and realized, like, okay, all the love we're giving is great, but we have to give ourselves that love first because it's far more better to pour from a full cup than it is a half empty cup. So again, I do go to church. I pray, I meditate, I eat very well. I'm a chef, by the way, so food and nutrition and health and wellness is something that's very important, especially with children and children with behavioral issues. Food is very important. So I try to set myself up every single day with the intent of giving myself every single day some type of love and some type of care.
That's awesome. I love it. So Alexis is saying simplify daily task. I wrote that one down for myself, right? And giving ourselves space to, hey, if I want to have someone deliver the groceries for me instead of doing it. For me, I love going grocery shopping. So that is part of my own self-care. But Valerie, you talked about mind, body, and spirit, right? And really loving yourself first and filling your cup first. So I really like those points. Denise, can we hear from you? What does self-care look like for you? How do you define it?
Well, self-care for me, I can define it in the way that I can take time to reflect. I can think about what I have to do on my daily basis, like daily duties. I can sketch things out of, figure out what areas in my life I can improve, make more time and space for more self-care, like eliminate things that are not necessary. One of the things that was mentioned earlier was like I don't have to add everything to my calendar. Before I had birthdays, I had unnecessary things that would clutter my calendar. That's a big for me right now because I still go back and check my calendar and say, okay, this is not necessary. This will be put at the bottom of my bucket list, and then I'll go back and revisit that and then see what other things I can do during my free time. So definitely that's a big one for me. And then I can also use my time wisely and not overwork myself. I take time to breathe more because sometimes we forget to breathe. Reading the Bible is one of my big things. I can agree with Alexis, and also reading my Bible because I love reading now. And just do things that makes me feel good inside and out.
Oh, I love that. Doing things that make us feel good inside and out, right? I love that. Those are some great strategies. I hope our participants are taking notes. This is really good stuff happening here. And I also like the time to reflect. I built that into my day as well, time to reflect. Stephanie, how do you define self-care and what does it look like for you?
Well, to go back to maybe a little over a year ago, I was doing the opposite of self-care. I was abusive to myself, honestly. I was drinking every night. Oh, just two spiked seltzers, that's fine. No, there was a lot of things that I wasn't taking initiative of my health, prioritizing my family, and I really have been through a lifestyle change now. I'm going to the gym. I I saw a therapist and I got on proper medication. Um, so there were a lot of things that I needed to change. And so now, I'm making those changes and I'm seeing how different things are. And it's eye-opening, really. So self-care, though, for me would be the gym. And if I can't find time for that, being a stay-at-home mom, I would throw on a YouTube, Danny Go. We like to dance to him, me and my kids together. So we get some exercise that way.
Awesome. And I think that we have all arrived at the point of understanding that self-care can't be a one and done every so often practice, right? I see the nods. And we kind of heard that too from our keynote speaker this afternoon. But wondering, right, what may get in the way of you practicing self-care? Because I have to admit that we haven't all woken up on any particular day and said, I've been doing this all my life. I've been practicing self-care. If we were, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And so what might get in the way of practicing self-care on a consistent basis? And I'm going to start with you, Stephanie, because you already started us there. You said, like, if I can't go to the gym, then I will. But what are the things that get in the way of practicing self-care on a consistent basis?
Definitely the kids. And then, the stresses of, oh, well, I don't want to say that. The kids, actually, and then my mental state and trying to cope with that. So do things with the kids. That's what I've been doing. Like, I love baking. I'll have the kids help. Again, throw on the YouTube video. Let's all dance together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And look, no one's judging you. I agree. That's probably the number one thing that gets in the way of us practicing self-care for ourselves as parents are our children, because for us, they are number one priority. And we quite frankly give our all, right? We want our children to succeed. We want them to be healthy. We want them to feel loved. And sometimes that's at the expense of not taking care of ourselves. So Stephanie, I am with you. I understand. It's the kids, right? That's probably number one. If we were playing Family Feud, that would be number one. Number one, 97% of the people say it's our children. We love them, but because we pour so much into them, sometimes they do get in the way of us practicing self-care. I do like the idea of doing things with them, right? So I'm a physical person as well, and I need to release stress through physical things, right? So if I can't do it by myself, I might take a kid. Let's go for a walk. I like it. Good strategies here today. Alexis, let's come to you. So what gets in the way? What might get in the way of practicing self-care on a consistent basis, besides the children? What's number
Oh,
two? What's the next thing?
so we know life happens. So family emergencies can take place. And I know you said not to mention the kids, but something that recently happened was my oldest was having some serious health challenges. And I was constantly in the emergency room with him, seeing different doctors. And because he wasn't getting any rest, I wasn't getting any rest. So now I'm frazzled, overwhelmed, stressed out. And then I recognize, wait, my hormones feel like they're out of whack because now I'm short tempered. And one of the things I had to pay attention to was, okay, how do I get my hormones balanced again? So then I started to research some things online. How can I do this holistically? I was taking nutritional supplement, but there's something that I'm missing. And then learning other adaptogens that I could incorporate into my diet has now helped me to stay calmer. I'm able to be emotionally present. At this time, I'm not as fatigued as I was. Now we're back on a routine where everyone is getting their rest for the most part. Also making sure that I'm hydrated because you're running around, tending to household needs, family emergencies, your own personal doctor's appointments, and you may forget to hydrate and end up drinking maybe coffee or some caffeinated tea. Now you're dehydrated, you're sucked dry, and you're just irritated. Your skin is not glowing. So taking time for those things, making sure that everything is balanced all over again.
Yes. Why are you in my business, Alexis? Because that's me. I am the coffee drinker. I'm thirsty, and instead of going to get water, I do have my water here.
So I do the caffeinated teas. I have my water right here as well.
Right? Because we're exhausted and we're tired and we go for the caffeine, the thing that we think is going to energize us. And so then we go for the coffee and then we become more dehydrated. I like what you said, right? Because this brings us back to mind, body, and spirit. We were talking about, for those who might just be tuning in with us, we're talking about what might get in the way of practicing self-care on a consistent basis. You first said family emergencies, right? So those things that just pop up and we have to take care of no matter what. But you also mentioned, right, sometimes our health, right? Being in tune with your health and recognizing where you might be off center and where you might have to address something that's going on in your body, right? And this is an issue for mothers and fathers and all parents and caregivers, right? Being in tune with what's happening in your body, whether it's a physical thing that, oh my gosh, I am dehydrated, or I might have a hormonal imbalance, or for some of us who are perimenopausal or menopausal, like going through these life changes and how that affects us, our mental capacity, our thinking, brain fog, all the things. And so I like how you said, I had to be in check with my hormones. I was off balance. And then I sought strategies. You said you started looking at what you could do holistically to deal with that. So thank you so much. This is such a good conversation. I'm loving it. I'm learning it. So when you see me looking down and taking little notes, Denise, what might get in the way from practicing self-care on a consistent basis for you?
For the past few years, for me, was saying yes to everything and everyone. So I was drowning and I was trying to save the world, and that's a big problem. And that's one of the other things that I advise people, especially young people, not to do, because when you do that, that kind of like creates something where people think that they can always run back to you for anything. And then it's going to be hard for you to even say, "Ah, I'm sorry, but this time around, I can't do it." And people don't like for you to turn them down. So that kind of like breaks relationships. So I would say that was one of the biggest thing that I did mistakenly, like saying yes to everything. And I was drowning. I was not taking care of, and just so busy where I didn't even have time for my kids and stuff like that. It was also affecting them. But also I started off with other folks, and then I'm doing that in my home. So I'm teaching my kids to know when it's me time. And then I'll make sure that they are okay, they're in their rooms doing whatever, and Noah's drawing. And, when I set myself away, that means they know it's my time and they respect that. And it kind of works. So I had to kind of implement that and bring that into my routine at home so everyone can understand, okay, mom is overwhelmed. My mom needs some time. But yeah, it was kind of like drowning myself and trying to save the world, basically.
Right. I mean, you probably are superwoman. I'm not sure if any of us can save the world on our own or by ourselves, and that shouldn't be a weight that we have to carry. And so that can get in the way of practicing self-care when you feel like you can't say no, and what comes with a no when you make a decision to, I can't do this. I'm sorry, but I need to try to take care of myself. Sometimes there's guilt, whether it's we can't do something for our children or friends or family or a coworker, or hey, can you come to this event, or can you just click on that Zoom link? Those things get in the way of us practicing our self-care. And so thank you, Denise, for sharing that. I love that point that you made about what you're trying to model for your children. We're going to come back to that before we close out, but I love that point that you're trying to show your children how they need to also practice self-care and take time for themselves. Mallory, right? I think it's time for Mallory. Did we hear from you yet? Practicing self-care on a consistent basis. What gets in the way?
I'm gonna go and say for me, it can be life as a whole. My biggest issue was the desire to feel accomplished and get things done. So I was one of those people that, yes, I have 6 children, divorced, single mom, had a job, school, everything, but still desired to pack my schedule with more things. If there was an hour of free time, that free time was going to go to someone else or another task or another job. And I always made the excuse of, oh, I can get it done. And so for a long time, I allowed that to get in the way of actually taking care of myself. And so that for me was a big deal, like giving myself grace and allowing myself to understand, like, listen, we got 2 loads done today. The other 2 are going to have to wait. Listen, we got the dishes done. We're not going to be able to cook. Let's order dinner. Like those are the type of give and takes I would give myself to where I'm not feeling guilty or bad for not completing the task. And that's really how I had to start off because I suffer from depression and didn't know till 5 years ago. So I was oftentimes so down on myself about like, okay, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And it wasn't until I realized that I had to give myself a little bit of grace. And
Right.
so now here I am. I'm okay with leaving something for the next day or not saying, yeah, or no, I can't go. No, I can't attend. No, we won't make it. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think, lack of grace for ourselves, right? That can get in the way because we are so hard on ourselves, or maybe we have high expectation for ourselves, or others have high expectations of us. Or maybe they're misguided expectations, or they're not realistic expectations. And so that can get in the way of, first of all, our own personal peace. And then also the grace that we extend for ourselves, right? To make mistakes, to decide that we're not going to do something, and to accept some things, right? Sometimes we have to accept the thing that's just not going to happen. The other thing I wanted to share, just open up, just a reality of the situation is sometimes finances get in the way. My husband says to me, one of my self-care practices is I go every 2 to 3 weeks for a pedicure. And yes, it's probably something I can do at home, but it's one of my things that I invest in myself. I get a pedicure. That's how I spend my money. And he's just like, well, how much does that cost? Isn't that expensive? Um, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what it is. It's an investment in me, right? No different than I invest time in other people. I might invest money in stocks or bonds or in other things. My pedicure that I get every 2 to 3 weeks is the way I practice self-care. It has become a non-negotiable thing. And so sometimes you have to balance and negotiate within your own household, or even within yourself and your own budget, your finances. Am I able to do the thing I want to do to practice self-care? And I would also say that as we get into this conversation around, what we want for our children and the legacy and the values we want to pass on to our children about the importance of self-care, I have 4 children, and they're all adults, and 2 of those are girls, so then the other 2 would be boys, or they're men and women now. And my daughters have especially watched me when it comes to self-care, how I've made some things non-negotiable for my own mental health, for my own physical health. And, for me, my pedicure is a time for me. I can't run away and do anything. Once I'm in that chair and my feet are in that water, I'm not going anywhere, right? So it is like a self-imposed, like you're not doing anything, you're going to relax and you're going to get treated well or whatever. And so I've noticed that my daughters are now doing things like that. One of my daughters goes out and she takes herself to lunch by herself, or she'll go to dinner. And once a month, she will have a meal by herself. It's part of her self-care. So I wonder for you, as we think about the importance of self-care, what is the legacy and the values that you want to pass on to your children, and maybe to others who are within your realm of influence and in your family? Mallory, I'm going to start with you.
So I would have to say that self-care shouldn't be just something that we look at as a surface thing. It should be a lifestyle. It should be a way of choice. And I think as naturally as it comes for us to want to take care of those that we love around us, it should come naturally and really organic for us to want to love ourselves just as much. Um, and so I hope going forward in life, my kids get to watch me and see that me giving myself this time, this space, whether it be effective communication, whether it be at church, whether it be at home, that they can see what it takes for me to give myself the time to in the space that I need to do everything that they see me do. That way they can apply it when they get older and tweak it the way that it works for them. I grew up in a time where I watched my mother, my grandmother, and everyone else take care of everyone else and show us how to necessarily care for our families and everyone else. But they never really took the time unless it was at church or in that prayer closet that they had the time on their own. So I want them to see that it doesn't look a certain way. It could be anything that's relative to them to that they're getting the necessary care for themselves.
I love that. I love that, right? And it's what you feel self-care is for you. Get what you need. Denise, we're coming back to you. Are you able to join us and let us know what legacy and values you want to pass on about the importance of self-care to your children?
My advice would be take time to plan, set goals, anything that they want to accomplish, because if they don't do these things, they can become overwhelmed and lost with no direction. So I kind of made it simple because I think it starts there, and then down the road, they're going to be able to see like what are their goals, what is it that they want to accomplish and get into, and then be successful in anything.
You, Denise. Stephanie, how about you? Legacy, values you want to pass on to
Yeah.
the
So
children.
I want my kids to see my husband being supportive to me and to grow up knowing that they can have a supportive partner in the future. It's as simple as that, really. I mean,
Say it again. Say it again for the people in the back.
yeah, just so my kids know how to find that supportive partner and believe that they're deserving of support and they themselves are enough. And that's it.
Yes, excellent. I love it. I love it. Alexis.
So I want my boys to understand that self-care and self-love is foundational. If how they, take care of themselves hygiene-wise, nutritionally, mentally, physically, it shows how they'll show up in the world. And I grew up in a Caribbean household where self-care was not emphasized. As a matter of fact, even resting on a Saturday was considered lazy, whereas hard work was praised at your own expense of your well-being. And that resulted in many health challenges for the women in my family. When I sat back and paid attention, I said, wait, something has to change. And I think my mom realized it in her older years, where she said that, don't be that Amazon woman. You don't have to do that anymore. Whatever makes your life easier, do it that way so that you're not having the same health challenges the rest of us are having. And I've made that a conscious decision to just change up some things. And I'm showing them, oh, it's easier. Now my mom loves grocery delivery. She does not want to go to anyone's supermarket for anything. She calls me, I need this, I order it, and it goes right to her in New York. So, So, everyone is learning. My aunt is learning too. Now she's ordering from Walmart because she realizes she doesn't have to go out there. She's getting up in age. So just little things that I'm doing and passing it on to the older generation is absolutely amazing. And my children see that. So now they're taking their time for their little me time in a room, in a corner, and everyone is just resting. And, taking a Saturday to observe it as a Sabbath, a day of rest, has been something I've implemented within the past year. And it has done wonders for me throughout the rest of the following week. So that's the legacy I want to leave behind, doing things that's simple, taking time to rest. You do not have to feel guilty for taking a nap because it's needed. And just it shows how you'll show up in the world going forward.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So I am going to come in with you on the nap. To me, Sunday afternoon naps are the best naps ever in the world. If you haven't had a Sunday afternoon nap, I suggest taking one like 2 hours, like 1 to 3 or 2 to 4. It will change your life. I also practice Sabbath, right? And so for people, Sabbath looks different. Sometimes people work on the weekend, so their Sabbath day, which is just a day of rest where you do nothing else but rest, might take place during the middle of the week. Mine takes place at around sunset on Saturday into sunset on Sunday. And then the later part of the Sunday, I can prepare for my week and my Monday. But I think a day of rest, really setting aside time to rest, to intentionally say, this is rest time and this is what we're going to do, is important. But here's another thing. I need someone to put in the chat for us. If you haven't heard of this, please look up the NAP ministry, NAP ministry, right? Take yourself a good old nap, right? And so this whole concept about rest and napping and why we require it and we should do it for ourselves is so important. Look up the NAP ministry. I don't have a commercial on it for you, but you'll trust me. I also want to say I loved how all of you have shared about your children, both boys and girls, right? And so self-care is not just a conversation for girls and young women, but it's definitely a conversation for boys, adolescent boys, teenage boys, men. And I think this conversation that a lot of us, most of us in this space are women, but I know that there's some men on this call too, that we should embrace this concept for every single person, no matter how you identify, no matter what your gender role is, no matter what your gender is, no matter what your role, how you identify in your role in a household, that or whatever your function is within a family, everyone is entitled to self-care, right? And so it's so important. I think we have time for one more question as we close out. But before you were a parent or a caregiver, there was just you, whoever you are, and how you decided to show up in the world. And as we have grown into our adulthood and our parenthood, I wonder if there are things that you might have told your younger self. Is there advice that you would have given your younger self about why it's important to take care of, for those in this space, for her, your younger self? What have you told her about taking care of herself? And I'm going to let's start with Denise and we'll work our way around. Denise, what would have you have told your younger self about taking care of her?
Definitely eat better.
Mm,
Eat
better.
healthier for sure.
Okay, I like that. Eat better.
Because when you eat better and healthier foods, you're able to think straight and have a clear mind to be able to make better choices.
Okay, great. Thank you. Stephanie.
Yeah, I would have told myself that life is ever changing, ever evolving, and I won't always be stuck in this one spot that I may have been in. Time changes a lot, and I think that growth happens with that. So
Awesome. Alexis.
I would tell my younger self-care is necessary, and listen to your body. If your body's telling you something is off, pay close attention, and to write down grace days on your calendar. Those are usually the days when you have your menstrual cycle, because we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves when we're not feeling up to par during that time period, and expect our bodies to operate it would if we were not on our cycle. So we're expecting to push harder to get things done, but you just need to rest. Give yourself grace and listen to what your body needs.
Thank you, Alexis. And finally, Mallory.
So I would tell my younger self to slow down, take a deep breath, find your grounding, and give yourself some grace. You have everything inside of you necessary to give yourself everything that you need, and trust God. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Well, everyone, just please give a virtual round of applause to our esteemed parent panel. Thank you so much for sharing with us and your authenticity and all of these gems that you've dropped for us today. Thank you for having us, and turning it back over to Lorna now.
My, thank you so very much. You see the reaction, you see the response. I'm still trying to absorb the wonderful words of advice you all collectively have shared with us. My, the importance of giving yourself grace, and everyone is entitled to self-care. Listen to your body. Listen to what your body needs. My, just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful advice. And I love self-care, and self-love is foundational. Thank you so very much, Mallory, Alexis, Denise, and Stephanie, for sharing those words of wisdom with us. And of course, thank you, Melvette, for facilitating and guiding such a wonderful, productive conversation. And with that, have several persons want to thank. So appreciative for Diana Reyes for giving our instructions on how to access interpretation. Thank you, Diana. And thank you, Sasha and Paola, for providing interpretation. Elena Trueworthy, our acting commissioner, thank you so very much for your warm embrace and welcome at the top of the webinar. And of course, Joelle Murchison, thank you for such a powerful keynote message, reminding us of the importance of self-care, reminding us of practicing what we preach and how it ultimately benefits those we love. Wonderful, powerful message. Thank you, Joelle. Also want to thank for our video that was shared, provided from Alliance for a Healthier Generation. So thank you for that wonderful video reminding us of self-care and how to practice it. Again, I also want to thank Karen and Christina. Thank you so much for sharing about OEC's family engagement efforts. You two are a dynamic duo and greatly appreciate you both. And again, to Melvette, to Mallory, to Alexis, to Denise, Stephanie, thank you for a wonderful panel discussion. And we have many persons that help and support us behind the scenes. Want to thank Jen Ide for managing all things Zoom and handling all things regarding this webinar and maintenance of that. Thank you so very much, Jen. Thank you to our team O'Donnell for your support in recording the webinar and helping to produce it at a later time. And we certainly thank our UConn School of Social Work, Innovation Institute, who will be providing the survey for us. And speaking of survey, please be aware of a survey link that will be shared with you. We greatly appreciate your input, your support, your feedback with these webinars. So please do complete the survey that will help us continue to try to put these forward. And all in all, with all of the thanks that have been given, last but certainly not least, want to thank all of you that are viewing this webinar. We know that you have many things on your plate, many things you are juggling, but we thank you for taking the time to be with us here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening attentively, because it's important as we're talking about the importance of self-care that it's not a sit and get, it's a sit and do. So for all of you, make sure that you are applying the words of advice that have been shared with all of us, because we know we are only helpful to those we love once we first are helpful to ourselves. And so with that, thank you all for your time, your attention, your support. We greatly appreciate you. And until we come together again, please be well and stay safe. Thank you.